Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Steve here. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for our next travelogue and our look around the world. Seeing as we can't go to places automatically, what we're going to do is we're going to go there virtually. Now, what I was going to tell everyone who's listening to this recording is that your microphones have been turned off. This is purely a one-way webinar, and also your microphone and videos are both turned off. But if you do wish to chat to me, you should find on your control bar a question and an answer button. If you were to put any questions in that box, I'll be able to see them, and we'll stop from time to time and answer your questions. Okay, let's just get this thing going. So I just want to tell you, here at Liberty Tours, I want to tell you who we are, because this comes from our values. Actually, we are explorers, always seeking another place, another adventure, another way. And part of that for us today is because we can't go to Sri Lanka by plane. What we're going to do is have a virtual look around. And these travelogues are a series, a way for us to actually keep our travel dreams alive. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve Cairns. I've been travelling the world for over 40 years now. For many years, I used to be a consultant to major businesses around the world, and I worked on most continents doing that. And for the last few years, since I was invited to be managing director of Liberty Tours, I've had the very great pleasure of travelling. And I call it work. Well, it's not work at all. It's just a continuation of what I love to do. And today we're going to this little island stuck in the middle of the Indian Ocean, hanging off the bottom of India there, called Sri Lanka. I don't know if any of you know, but Sri Lanka used to be joined to the mainland by a small, a land bridge, which gradually, as the island has sunk and the water there has sunk, there's now a channel, and Sri Lanka is a true island. But they actually had to dredge it out to make it deep enough for the ships to go through. So what we're going to do as we move on, we're going to have a look. I just wonder, the things that many of us think about when you think about Sri Lanka. Many of you are probably thinking about the spice routes, and where the East India Company used to run there. It was colonized by the Europeans, of course, both by the Portuguese and the Dutch, when it was one of the Spice Islands. People will also always be thinking of elephants in this part of the world, tea plantations, and of course, last of all, the nature. It is an absolutely beautiful place to visit. Today, as we go through, we're going to talk about all of those things, but I'm also going to introduce you to some new things. Once a year, every June, in a city right in the middle of Sri Lanka called Kandy, they have a perahera. Now, perahera is just a local word for a parade, basically. But that's a wonderful experience, and I think next year, if people like this island, I'll be very happy to take a group of people there, and you can come away with me and experience some of the things I've got. I'm going to take you to that. We'll talk about Vesak, which is the birthday of the Lord Buddha, which comes up next week. There'll be lots of other stuff. So let's move on and have a look. First, I'm just going to play you a video which doesn't have any sound, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a bit of music, and this goes for about a minute and a half, just to whet your appetite. That train is something that people can go on if they wish. And I know that at least one of the people watching this video now, Jenny, went on it a few months ago or last year and absolutely loved it. we'll be talking about all of these archaeological sites, some of them many, many thousands of years old. It's a big climb up that rock. Oops, it just stopped. It came to a stop. Oh no, it's all done. That's fine. We'll just move on. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off our trip by starting in the capital, Colombo. Then I'll be taking you up into what is called its cultural triangle up there, where we'll go through Anuradhapura. We'll go to Polonnaruwa, which were two of the ancient capitals of Sri Lanka in earlier parts of the history. And then our next stop will be Sigiriya, which is another one of the capitals from many years ago. And after that, I'm going to pause for a moment. If any of you have any questions, then that'd be a great time for me to answer them. And for you to do that, I think I just said a minute ago, if you have a look in the control box, you should find a Q&A box, and you can put any questions in there, okay? So just before we go on, I want to tell you a little bit about who lives on Sri Lanka. There are actually 4 major ethnic groups for us to consider. The biggest one, the Sinhalese. There's about 11 million of them. Most of them are Buddhist, and they arrived in Sri Lanka from mainland India about 500 years before Christ. There were many natives living on the island for thousands of years before that, actually, but we'll get to them later. The next largest group are the Tamils, and they're mainly Hindu and Christian. These people are not racially any different. It's just cultural differences with the people. And I think a lot of you would know that there was a civil war between the Tamils, who wanted independence, and the dominant Sinhalese that lasted 30 years. That has fortunately now finished. It was still running when I was last there, which unfortunately is nearly 10 years ago. But fortunately that's now behind us. Now, the other groups, the Muslims, there are about 1 million Muslims. So we started with 11 million Sinhalese speaking Sinhala, Tamils, nearly 3 million speaking Tamil, Muslims speaking whatever they like. And the other group they call the Burghers, they're actually people of European descent, and that's primarily Dutch and Portuguese. And finally, the last group are the Veda. They're the ancient inhabitants who lived there for thousands of years and still live there, mainly in small rural communities. Now, let's as we run around, we're going to start in the capital, Colombo, which is a major developed city, and some of the things we'll find just nearby. When people arrive, many people stay in Negombo, which is a village just a few kilometres to the north of the city, which is very big on its fishing industry. Then, if we're in the major transport there is the tuk-tuk, which is the same as their three-wheeled tricycle, three-wheeled motorbike taxis that are found all over Southeast Asia, and of course in Colombo it does have a whole range of beautiful hotels for us to look at. One of the things that we find that there are still pockets of poverty on the island, and this actually is a photo of family friends of mine who I've been to visit a few times. The lad on the end, Nuan, holding the baby, that's his nephew. Nuan is a friend of mine, and back in the doorway, who we can hardly see, is his twin brother, Ruan. Those two live at home with their parents, his wife and her husband and their children. So there's a big family actually lives in this little mud brick house. perhaps you can see in the windows all the smoke, because inside there they have an open wood fire for cooking on. And so it's smoky and quite unpleasant. And for the whole household, there's only one bed, which is for the parents, and the rest of the family sleep on the floor. And there's no running water or anything like that. Actually, I remember a few years ago, my friend Juan said to me, when they had big floods there, he was very excited, because he said that his bathroom had come to him rather than him having to walk down to the river to bathe. As continuing on the map that we just saw, Anuradhapura is one of the ancient capitals. This was started. This was the major Buddhist capital of Sri Lanka. It was founded or around a fig tree, and in the top left-hand corner, don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen there, or whether it just shows on mine, but the fig tree in the top left-hand corner was taken, according to tradition, it was taken from a branch of the Bodhi tree that the Lord Buddha sat under when he achieved enlightenment. It was a few hundred years after the Buddha left this world, but for over 2,000 years, this particular tree has been tended by the nuns and the monks, and so it's probably one of the oldest continuously living trees in the world. We know that because it's been continually tended throughout that entire time. As you can see from this, because considering it's a very old complex, it's preserved in terrific condition. And just near it is Polonnaruwa, which is another one of the ancient cities. This was famous. Was capital about 1,000 years later. So this was in the 10th to the 12th century, and the entire landscape there is punctuated by man-made lakes, and it's just a magnificent place. And finally, the third place that we're going to move on to is this hilltop fortress called Sigiriya. And the Sigiriya was, the fortress actually dates back 7,000 years. And to get to the top of it, there's a couple of ways you can get up to the top. Going up the side of the hill, and you can see it's a long way up, that you actually climb up on a bamboo walkway which is made all the way up, and on the way up it is actually possible to see scribble on the walls, writing which is actually graffiti that was left by the slaves who built it. Unfortunately, when they built on top of the hill, they didn't take account of the fact that they had no water. So even though they built a magnificent small fortress up there, it was only occupied for I think about 7 or 17 years, because and it was actually abandoned because of the fact that they didn't have any water there. So here we are. We've just had a look at Colombo and 3 places up in the Golden Triangle. Let me just have a little look. Yeah, so someone's just assured me that you could see my cursor there. That's great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move. As I say, just if you have any questions, just drop them in the Q&A box, and I'll let you know about things as we go. So the next places we're going to go on to from here is we're going to start putting in Dambulla. And Dambulla is a place of religious significance that actually completes this cultural triangle. Following on from that, we'll go down to Pinnawala, to the Elephant Orphanage, and then on to Kandy. Kandy is one of the largest cities on the island, apart from Colombo. And it's very famous because it has a major temple, which it's called the Temple of the Tooth. That contains a reliquary that has one of the Buddha's teeth in it. Let's go on and we'll have a look at these places. So Dambulla, this is a World Heritage Site, and the new building along the front just is really an entranceway, and this site has been occupied for 22 centuries. That's 2,200 years, and in it, inside there are caves inside the mountain here, including there have been 80 monastic dwellings identified in there. So monks have been living there through most of that time, and in the uppermost shelters, we actually find a whole lot of shrines with 157 carved statues. And inside, it looks a bit like this. And as you can see, there's 157 of these, all carved into the mountains, and it's just absolutely spectacular. Let's have a look from another viewpoint, and you'll be able to see people in here to give an idea of the scale. And this one here we saw on the previous slide here, this reclining book. This for me is one of the must-see temples around the world, because most of these have been carved directly into the rock, or to put it the other way, the cave has been carved out, leaving these sculptures behind. Pinnawala has an elephant sanctuary. Someone just asked me how long does it take to get from Colombo to the fortress. Well, the answer to get to any of these places, you're really only talking a few hours to get from Colombo up to those old towns, and then it's just a half-hour drive between them. Because if we have a look about the size of Sri Lanka is almost exactly the same size as Tasmania. So that just means if the roads were good, it would only take you a couple of hours to drive from one end of it to the other. As it turns out, the roads, a lot of the roads are not that good, and it's going to take you longer. It'll take probably four hours to get top to bottom on the island. So the reclining figure is just one of the many poses of the Buddha. We actually find this throughout Southeast Asia. You find it in Sri Lanka and find them in Thailand as well. Now, if I had my reference book with me, I'd be able to tell you what all the hand positions and things mean, but I haven't got my reference book, so I'm not going to tell you. But the Pinnawala Elephant Sanctuary is quite a sad place to visit, I've found, because many of these elephants are traumatized, because even over the years they've been used extensively for logging and that sort of thing, but the treatment hasn't necessarily been that good, and you find that many of them are chained because they can go rogue, and whilst the sanctuary is there for very good reason and has been created out of a sense of purpose and to look after them, the history of the place means that it's worth a look, but give due deference to the history of these animals. As we move on, I was talking about going to Kandy. This is a photo that I took of a dance troupe, and one of the reasons this is interesting, because you find that across the island, there are many small sort of microcultures, and all of them have their own traditional costumes and their own dance, and it's quite a spectacle to see. And this just comes in a small theatre with dinner. Here we see the Temple of the Tooth. As I said, this contains a reliquary with one of the Buddha's teeth, but the temple wasn't actually built until 800 years after the Buddha died. The Perahera itself, the parade here, dates back to only 500 years after he died. Because it's a combination of a Buddhist festival and also paying respect to local gods and that sort of things of the community. So the Perahera was here long before the actual temple, or at least the tooth in it was there. The Perahera lasts for a week. I think it's about 11 days in total. The first 5 days only men parade, and in the second 6 days, men and women parade and pay their respects to the gods. You see all, and during the festival, we find villagers walking their elephants from all over the island. So when the para first starts on the first night, you had maybe 20 or 30 elephants parading, all dressed in lights and with men with whip cracking and fireball acrobats and flag bearers. And then as the days go by, more and more elephants arrive, and generally by the end of it, you had maybe over 100 or 120 elephants parading there. And I would absolutely love to take people back to see this, which in 2021, because it happens in the period of the full moon in the middle of the year, and so unfortunately it won't be happening, or at least visitors won't be there this year because of travel restrictions at the moment. Here's another view of more of the elephants, and you see the way they're all dressed to party and that sort of thing. So, next thing for us to consider, and while I'm talking about this, if you have any questions I might be able to ask, we've probably got 1 or 2 coming in. Just pop them in the Q&A box, and I'll see if I can answer them. This festival called Vesak is also known as Buddha Day, and it's a commemoration of the day that he was born, the day that he achieved enlightenment, and the day that he ascended to Nirvana and passed on into the next realm of existence. It's interesting that according to Buddha's tradition, all of those actually happen on the same day of the year. The Buddha lived to be about 80 or so years old. So in Sri Lanka next week when it comes, which is the 7th of May this year, right across Sri Lanka and across the Buddhist world, people will be celebrating by worship, offering flowers, lighting lamps, burning incense in their house and also in the temples, taking offerings of food to the temple for the various gods. And everyone decorates their houses and all the public places with beautiful coloured lanterns, which they call Vesak Kudu. And it is totally a time of joy and happiness. Let's have a look, see what people have been asking. Joy in Queensland has asked, do you have to buy a special ticket to go to Perahera, or can you just turn up? Well, the answer is yes and yes. There's and everyone can see it. And her second question was, if men are parading in the first week, can women watch? Yes, they can, but it's for historical reasons. It's a male festival. But so to go and see it is the same as many parades. As tourists, you can, there are big stands erected, and you can buy and you can buy a seat to watch the parade go past. It's fairly expensive. It's about for the top seats, it's about $100 US for the seat, which I suppose is not bad from the point of view that you only do it once. But when I went many years ago, I did actually take potluck and just push my way through the crowd and watched from the side. And for me, that was a perfectly legitimate experience. In fact, I think it's part of the fun, really, is to be there with everyone else, because this, unlike some parades around the world, hasn't been policed out of existence. As we found, I don't know if people have been to London to the Notting Hill Carnival, which is traditionally a Caribbean festival, or festival for the Caribbean community, but at the Notting Hill Carnival, they put up so many barriers to keep people safe. They're just taking all the fun out of it. But anyway, I assure you that the festivals in Sri Lanka are not like that. Let's press on and see what we've got next. So here we are. We've just been right down through Pinawala and Kandy here. We're going to continue down the route. We're going to go to this place here, Nuwara Alaya, which is the tea growing area, and it's high. It's quite high in the mountain, so it's a lot cooler, even though it's pretty close to the equator. The climate is very mild, and there's lush green, as you can see. In fact, in the photo here of the train going through, and it's known as Little England. And after we've been there, we're going to press on south to Yala, which is a lovely national park. And then we're going to push through around the south coast through Galle, which is where the Test cricket is played. Then start having a look at Bentoto, which is a tourist area, and then finish by getting back to the capital, Colombo. Now, there are other areas of the island that are well worth visiting, which is the east coast, which I haven't got on this slideshow, and also you can go to the north of the island, right up to the north into the Tamil area, which is still quite relatively poor, because that's where most of the civil war was fought, and where, of course, because there's war, there's damage done. Even though it's finished a number of years ago, the economic damage is still there, but it's still really worth a visit. Okay, so let's start by going to the Nuwara Alaya. So as I say, in this tea growing area, you can just feel and see from the rain clouds that it's a lot cooler. And actually, with the rain, people sometimes ask, when is the best time to visit? In fact, that's a question that came in a moment ago. Because of the prevailing winds, prevailing seasons, for half the year, the eastern side of the island gets rainy and is occasionally subject to cyclones and that sort of thing. And for the other half of the year, the western side is wet. So it doesn't matter when you go, you can always find a beautiful climate somewhere, especially for people who want to go surfing or sleeping on the beach and doing all that, because down at sea level, it is tropical and a beautiful environment. See once again, you see featured in this series of photos here that train that goes through the mountains is an unforgettable experience. And just below it in the center, you'll see here this colonial cottage, this is and you find a number of these because this is from the time that of the colonials actually planting the tea plantations and things, and spent their wealth on quite elaborate traditional European style buildings. So down to Yala National Park is where you can see a whole range of flora and fauna and bird watching. There's millions of birds, especially, and lovely animals, and it's and there's actually accommodation in the park, and that's a lovely place to stay. Let's see what we've got in here. Let's see what the questions. Is it worth, someone has asked, is it worth visiting Kandy outside of the festival? Absolutely. So you can go anytime. You can visit the Temple of the Tooth all year round. There are wonderful botanical gardens there that are well worth a visit. And also with the Festival of the Tooth, even though the parade is on every year, the actual tooth is actually brought out and paraded through the streets once every 7 or 10 years. 10 years, I think it is. But everything is there, and if the festival's not on, it's probably a good thing in a way, because you can go into the temple and you can queue and actually go and see the reliquary in its place in the temple, and get to look through a tiny little window where you can actually see the tooth, which was taken from the funeral pyre of the Buddha. So, Philip from Canberra has asked, how long would we recommend for? So for me, I actually recommend that people spend a couple of weeks in Sri Lanka. Because there are so many different experiences. In fact, we had some clients last year, and one of them I see is watching today on this broadcast. That's Jenny, who went away last year, and she and her husband went on a 10-day organised tour that we put together, and after that they did a self-drive. So I think that's a really nice way. I mean, finding your way around the island, it's a great place where you can go just as a couple. We can get a car and a driver for you, or you can go in a small group, and we'll just get a van, and it allows you to move around quite freely, and especially in a small group, it gives you an amount of flexibility with your schedule as well. So let's have a look. Another question here. What's the history of the train bridge? In actual fact, the train was built traditionally for bringing logs out of the mountains, but it has been upgraded in recent years to make it to make it a better ride, to make it more comfortable for tourists. Whale watching is available, especially around the east coast at certain times of year. As I say, there's also plenty of swimming and surfing and that sort of thing. And down on the southern coast, I told you we were taking around the coast. This is one of the places where you find the men doing this dyeing technique of stilt fishing, and they sit up there and wait for the tide to come in and share and fish in the shallow waters, spend all day up there. And you see there are a couple of other nice images of various types of fishing boats as well. Once we get around to Bentota, which, as I say, is a tourist area. I've got some images here. There are some of the things you can do is you can go into the larger photo. It's just paintings inside one of the numerous temples that you can find everywhere. This is a small, modest temple. You can see a photo of me there where I had a meeting, a personal audience with a monk who explained a lot to me about Buddhist tradition and that sort of thing. And down the bottom is someone with another form of fishing. That's my friend Nguyen fishing with a long surf rod. That was actually a present I took him one year, and he didn't like it because he prefers just to fish with a stick. So you can't please all of the people all the time. And as I say, Bentota is also a tourist area. We've got wonderful beaches and resorts. You can go on helicopter rides, play with the locals on the beach. Of course, you always have because the country's still relatively poor, you still often have these young lads coming around wanting to take you around and show you the sights and that sort of thing for an amount of money. And the resort owners are often down there shooing them away. But I actually found it quite pleasant to actually talk to them. A lot of them do that because they want to learn to speak English, and they'll take you around for a very small price and take you to some of the things that you can do there, such as have an Ayurvedic treatment. If you don't know about Ayurveda, this is ancient treatment that comes from the Vedic community, or one of the 5 cultural groups that we mentioned in Sri Lanka, and have been on Sri Lanka for about 7,000 years. And they use natural herbs and foods and medicines and that sort of thing as a way to generally not for curing illnesses, even though sometimes if you've got a bad stomach or some joint pain or something, it's great to treat it like this. But the philosophy of Ayurveda is really to balance the various energies within your body, and smells nice and it feels nice. I have no idea if it makes you better, but it's really nice to get pampered while you're there. So if we've got any more questions come in. Yes, Jenny has, I said, Jenny's just mentioned that the botanical gardens in Kandy are just lovely. Yes, and to spend an afternoon wandering around, seeing that, it is, thanks Jenny, it's a great place to spend some time, and perhaps go into the tea house and have some of their local teas and relax. We really enjoy that. I think for most of the things I want to show you, that shows you most of the things for Sri Lanka. And while we're talking about it, I just want to talk about the fact that we've been around most of the south of the island, or the southern half, 2/3 of the island, and most of the major attractions. And there are so many things you to see and do that I hope for people who are thinking of going away sometime, perhaps next year, this is one of my must-go-to places. So for your dreamers there, we are working to keep your travel dreams alive. And actually, to that end, people might not know that we have got a Facebook group called My Holidays Abroad, which we really encourage you to check out. It's only been going a month or so now, and already it's got quite a lot of people are going on there, posting their photos, talking to each other, looking for travel. You can look for travel companions or get ideas about where to go next. So we hope to see you in Sri Lanka very, very soon. So what I want to talk to you now about what's coming up next. Well, I'm not sure. We've got a slide here that says that next Saturday we're going to visit the garden routes around the world, but we haven't, not sure if our guest presenter is going to join us for this one, but we have got a whole series of coming up. We've got tours coming up of apart from the gardens of Europe. We're going to South America, when we'll have someone from South America join us. We'll be talking about going to the Deep South and doing the music routes through America, where you can go to the New Orleans Jazz Festival, you can go to the country and western places, you can go to Graceland, where we'll be talking about that. And as well as that, another one that I haven't arranged yet, but I will be putting together, is Egypt, because Egypt is one of the places on my bucket list. And guess what? I haven't been there, but I want to do some research and I want to present it because I want an excuse to be able to take you there. So if I understand that most people will not be booking tours at the moment, just because travel is so uncertain until we get a little bit further ahead, but some people are. So if you have any questions and if you want to go to, if you want to contact us, there are ways of doing that. We've got websites or groups, Fun with Liberty Tours, our website, My Holidays Abroad, as I said, as a group, and we'll be conducting these travelogues every week. So just to finish off, I just thank you. Let me check and see if there are any further questions. I think I might have answered them all. Let me see. Yeah, no, there's one. Our marketing manager Susan has just reminded me that another place we'll be doing is the Wineries of Europe, and that'll be fascinating too. So we've got a terrific number of destinations. Also, if you get onto one of those groups, get onto My Holidays Abroad, or drop us a note, then send a comment here about where you would like us to do a travelogue, then please let us know, and we'll be able to feature a destination for you. Perhaps it's the south of South America and Antarctica. It could be Africa. I've been to Africa a number of times. I've been to Western Africa, I've been to Eastern Africa, I've been to Southern Africa, and so we'd be very happy to do a travelogue about one of those areas. Or it could be Alaska and the Rocky Mountains. So if there's anything you'd like to know about, please let us know, and we'll talk to you again soon. I'm going to sign off now. Talk to you soon now. Bye bye.